Good morning, Mets fans, and welcome to a Monday edition of Driving with Mr. Met. I am Mr. Met, and for the second straight start, Jacob deGrom has shown that he is once again a human being, and wasn't as bad as his previous start, but last night in Atlanta he didn't pitch like we expect him to, and the Mets bullpen, of course, can't come into a game and into an inning and not give up at least one run. So last night the Mets ended up settling on a series split with the Braves. I want to talk about the 4-game set. I want to talk about ESPN's broadcast, if you can call it that, and I want to preview the upcoming series with the Philadelphia Phillies. To contrast what Jason Vargas did on Saturday with what Jacob deGrom did last night, Jason Vargas would love to do what Jacob deGrom did last night. Even when Jake is ineffective, he still ended up striking out 9 batters through 5 innings, gave up 3 runs, wasn't locating his pitches like he expects to. The Braves did put up some good at-bats against him. They fouled off a lot of pitches. I think I'd read they fouled off something like 15 pitches over his first 3 innings of work. So, I mean, that's tough, and the Braves clearly scouted him in a way that no one else has up to this point. And I'm not worried at all about Jacob deGrom, nor should anybody be. It wasn't a stinker of a start. It was just an okay start, and we're so used to perfection from deGrom that when he does anything but, it's like, what's wrong? And there's nothing wrong. He's a human being. The Vargas thing, though, Saturday night, Jason Vargas lasted far less than I expected. I said he was going to go 2 innings and give up 7 runs. And if only he had been able to go 2 innings. He wasn't, obviously. He pitched a third of an inning, ended up allowing 4 runs to score. I think 3 of them were of the inherited variety from Corey Oswalt, his relief. I'll talk about Oswalt in a second. But as far as Jason Vargas goes, I was sort of a let's wait and see with this guy. I had that sort of feeling in spring training, only because he had pitched so well down the stretch last year, and he did. He pitched pretty well in the second half. He's clearly not there right now. He looks awful. He looks like he doesn't belong in the major leagues. And then, of course, there's the way he looks in the postgame, which, of course, had Mets Twitter going crazy about him looking like a grandma or a science teacher or a hipster or whatever. Basically anything but a baseball player, Jason Vargas. And then, of course, the guy in the background stole the show and stole the spotlight. Alexander Hamilton, Samuel Adams, whoever that guy was, with the Founding Fathers looking white wig and the red velvet jacket. That guy was an absolute legend, and I hope someone finds out his identity. I found something on Twitter this morning that identified him. I just don't know if it was legit. I didn't get a chance to actually dig into that. So anyway, laughing aside, after Vargas put the Mets behind the 8 ball, Corey Oswalt had an opportunity to take the ball and show that he could be a better option every 5th day than Vargas. And what did Oswalt do? He went and actually put up a worse performance than Vargas, if that's humanly possible. He did give the Mets length, but he put the game out of reach. And that's the real troubling part about this, is that we're once again talking about the game not being winnable. Except this year, it's not because the Mets can't score runs. It's because the Mets can't stop giving up runs. And it's so weird because we're so used to being on the other side of that, where it's like, how are we going to score 2 runs? Oh, God, that's never going to happen. Now it's like, how can we not give up 2 runs? Because we know our offense can get these 2 runs back. And it's just a weird, complete 180 turn of where things used to be for this team over the last half a decade or so, where they just struggled like hell to score runs. It doesn't seem to be the case anymore. They put together good at-bats constantly. It's just the bullpen has to figure itself out. This bullpen is better than the way it's performing. Now, one thing that's worth mentioning is that this bug that's been traveling around the Mets locker room, apparently DeGrom had some case of it, or some symptoms of it last night, and he went out and pitched anyway, so he wasn't 100% health-wise. I've heard the same thing about Lugo and Justin Wilson, so it's still early on the season. We're 3 weeks deep into the season, and let's not overreact about the fact that the bullpen has been dreadful up to this point. But what makes it really hard, and really the same thing about Vargas, to not overreact, is the fact that there are options available on the free agent market every day who can bolster both the rotation and the bullpen. And that's, of course, Keuchel and Kimbrel, the double Ks. Neither of them have been signed by any team. That could be because both of them want more money than any team is willing to give them, and or more years. But whatever the case may be, they're still available, and that's what makes it so hard and difficult to deal with the Mets. The Mets just not doing something. Doing the same thing over and over again is the definition of insanity. And when there's an alternative to it that's available, it makes Mets fans kind of go like, "What are we doing here?" I understand there are no real good options down on the farm, but at this point, there has to be some alternative to Jason Vargas, because Jason Vargas is doing about as poor a job as you can possibly do in his job. So, yes, he has a contract. Yes, he's owed $8 or $9 million this year. You're going to pay him no matter what. Wouldn't you rather pay him to not pitch and have a chance to win the games that he was supposed to pitch? I know I would. But anyway, that's just me. It ain't my money either, so that's where things are right now with the state of the team. A lot of good, promising offensive performances again over the weekend. Michael Conforto continues to rake. He's having a great season up to this point. Jeff McNeil, same thing. I do want to comment on Brandon Nimmo. I didn't like that he was back in the leadoff spot after one day batting eighth. I think they should have left him batting eighth for a couple more days just to sort of clear his mind a little bit. But on the bright side, he is creeping back up to normal after a really, really sluggish start. I would just like to see the strikeouts tick down a little bit, but to me, because he strikes out so much, Nimmo, that is, at least up to this point, and he isn't getting on base quite to the prolific pace he was on last year, I would much rather see Jeff McNeil batting leadoff for the Mets, but that's just me. Final point for the upcoming series in Philadelphia. I'm going to the game tonight in Philly. The good thing about that is that I will not be subjected to another ESPN broadcast. Yes, tonight's game is on ESPN, and that is the final point, actually. The final point is that during last night's debacle of a game, the ESPN broadcast decided that not for one half, not for two halves, but for three halves, in other words, an inning and a half of baseball, they decided to focus their attention on an interview with baseball legend Hank Aaron. Wonderful man, wonderful story, absolute first class, great human being. But I'm sorry, there's a freaking baseball game on TV. This isn't a Ken Burns documentary. This isn't a 30 for 30. There is a baseball game, and the three people, Vazquez, A-Rod, and Mendoza, are being paid to call the game on the field, not to conduct an interview. And I'm sorry, ESPN, but there are other broadcasts that will do in-game interviews. SNY does it all the time. But the main focus on the screen remains the game on the field, not the people in the booth. No one gives a shit what his face looks like. Sorry, I was so annoyed watching that last night. And the best part is this morning I read, again on Twitter, that Howie and Wayne were equally annoyed. And they actually said ESPN's not even showing replays. Perhaps they forgot there's a baseball game, and then something like Howie said, if you're watching the ESPN broadcast, we'll make sure that you keep you abreast of the game that's actually being played on the field. The reason that you're here. And so spot on, because watching that was so obnoxious, and someone actually asked, would you be as offended if it were a 69 Met being interviewed? And my answer is plainly 100% yes. I don't care if it's Tom Seaver. I don't care if it's the ghost of Gil Hodges. I want to see the game. I'm interested in the interview, sure. But do it after the game. Do it during commercial. Do it during the 25-minute rain delay at the start of the game. there are tons of different ways to get that point across and to talk to a legend like Hank Aaron and not have it impede the broadcast. That was embarrassing. ESPN should be ashamed of itself. And honestly, if I were MLB, I would be calling them and being like, there's a reason why kids, when they tune into this product, they can't quite connect to it. Because you can't even connect to the product on the field when you're calling the game. Novel concept there. Maybe give a little dialogue to what's happening on the field and forget about your interview. Do it when there's not action on the field. That's my point to all this stuff. So I'm going to end on an angry note. And because I'm going to see the game tonight, I'll probably be even angrier tomorrow. This will probably be my last game in Philly. My brother lives outside of Philly, and I tend to go to games with him because he lives not far away and he gets good tickets and whatever. But he's moving soon, and this might well be our last game at Philly. So I am wearing the Noah Syndergaard jersey today because Noah's on the mound tonight. It'll be an interesting matchup across 3 games. Mets have Syndergaard, Syndergaard, Wheeler, and Matz going in this 3-game set. So the Phillies get to miss DeGrom. But I'm interested to see how Wheeler and Matz pitch against this Phillies lineup, which is really good. Excuse me. Which is really good. And I'm interested to see how those 2 guys do here. I'm not worried about Syndergaard. I think he'll be fine tonight, but we'll see. Sneezing again. Sorry. So that'll wrap it up for today. I will be back tomorrow morning sometime to recap the experience I have at Chile Citizens Bank Park tonight. It is going to be cold and windy, so hopefully the wind is blowing in and there aren't 68 home runs in the game. But I'll be back tomorrow to talk about it. So thanks for watching up till now. I appreciate it. Follow me on Twitter at Mr_Met. And as always, let's go Mets.